Jeffrey Tambor should be next in line, but Stalin's brutal enforcer, Dmitry Beria, played by Simone Russell Gill, has already begun his savage plotting for power. Gill, who's known as a great Shakespearean stage actor, plays Beria like Iago, jumping from one betrayal to another. In a more traditionally constructed comedy, he played a straight man, acting as a foil to the comic antics of Busini, Palin, and Tambor. But while Iannucci whips up a fever-pitched frenzy, his film, based on a 2017 graphic novel, is not a farce, but a tragicomedy. The dark elements are too corrosive to be tempered by laughter. When Stalin's deranged son pulls out a gun in the crowd of mourners surrounding his father's coffin, there's palpable fear that he might actually kill someone. This happens to humor in a series of one-liners penned by Iannucci with co-screenwriters David Snyder and Ian Martin. Throughout the film, comic moments are derailed by jarringly violent outbursts or the threat of them. Remembering the uproarious laughter of Iannucci's In the Loop from 2009 in the TV series Veep can create a longing for more humor than Iannucci is willing to dole out here, but the filmmaker doesn't seem to mind if he steps on the joke. He has a serious point to make about the dangers of surrendering truth in the face of power. Where power is based on whim and blind loyalty, that creates an untenable atmosphere, the film argues, placing ideology on shaky moral footing. One minute, Beria is gleefully passing out death lists with sadistic instructions, and the next minute he's retracting them as the political landscape shifts. It's not surprising that the film was banned in Russia, where Vladimir Putin appears to be following in the footsteps of the dictator who is being lampooned here, suppressing speech and allegedly eliminating his critics. But Iannucci has other Western targets in his sights as well. By implication, the death of Stalin is what all power-hungry leaders with shifting ideology and demands of absolute loyalty. Anyone else sound familiar? State voter rolls security a concern, by Christian A. Cassidy and Sarah Zimmerman, The Associated Press. Springfield, Illinois. With the Illinois primary just days away, state election officials are beefing up cyber defenses and scanning for possible intrusions into voting systems and voter registration rolls. They have good reason to be on guard. 2 years ago, Illinois was the lone state known to have the state election system breached in a hacking effort that ultimately targeted 21 states. Hackers believed to be connected to Russia penetrated the state's voter rolls, viewing data on some 76,000 Illinois voters, although there's no indication any information was changed. Since then, Illinois election officials have added firewalls, installed software designed to prevent intrusions, and shifted staffing to focus on the threats. And the state has been receiving regular cyber scans from the federal government to identify potential weak spots and has asked the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment. That assessment is scheduled but will not happen before Tuesday secured in the second in the nation primary. It's not something where you ever feel completely safe, Matt Dietrich, spokesman for the Illinois State Board of Educators, said. It's something where you feel like you're doing your best to protect against what could happen in a cyber attack. Federal intelligence agencies determined that the attempted hacking of state election systems in 2016 primarily targeted voter registration systems, not actual voting machines or vote tallying. Gaining access to electronic voter rolls can do as much damage, giving hackers the ability to change names, addresses, or polling places. Confusion, long lines, and delays in reporting election results would follow, all of which undermines confidence in elections. Cybersecurity experts say it's crucial for states to shore up vulnerabilities in those systems now, with this year's midterm elections underway and the 2020 presidential election on the horizon. J. Alex Holderman, director of the University of Michigan Center for Computer Security and Society, said many of the same weaknesses were present in 2016 and still remain. I think it's only a matter of time before we suffer a devastating attack on our election systems unless our federal and state governments act quickly, he said. The Federal Help America Vote Act, passed 2 years after the messy presidential recount in Florida, requires states to have a centralized statewide voter registration list, but states vary in how they implement it. Most collect voter data at the state level and then provide it to local election officials, according to the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. Illinois and 5 other states do the opposite, collecting voter registration data at the local level and sending it to the state elections office. A few others have a hybrid system. The chief concern surrounding voter registration systems and the growing use of electronic poll books to check in voters at polling places is how they interact with other internet-connected systems. Electronic poll books allow polling place workers to verify a person's registration and related information electronically rather than having to rely on large paper files. A downside is that the e-poll books might use a network to connect to a voter registration system, providing a potential opening for hackers. In other cases, voter data is transferred from a computer and placed on a device not connected to the internet. A computer is the potential weak link. Security experts said it must be secured and not subject to tampering. Experts with the Vetter Center for Science and International Affairs at the Harvard Kennedy School said network-connected election systems are vulnerable to attack and urged officials to take several steps to shore up security, including making sure the underlying server is not connected to the internet and that all changes are logged. Experts say a key component is that election systems can recover quickly in the event of an attack on even an equipment failure, limiting public disruption. Larry Norden, an expert in elections technology with the Brennan Center for Justice at the NYU School of Law, said the network connections make voter registration systems more vulnerable to hacking than voting machines which are not directly connected to the internet. In many states, the Department of Motor Vehicles or some other state agency provides information to the voter registration system as a way to keep the records current. Some states allow voters to register and edit their information on a state website that is connected to the voter database. All of those provide possible access points that can open the door to hackers. This understanding where the risks are is critical, Norden said. Comic book anthology raises money for Puerto Rico by David Betancourt, The Washington Post. St. Louis-based comic book publisher Lion Forge is joining the relief efforts to assist those still in need in Puerto Rico after the destruction of Hurricane Marta. All profits from Lion Forge's just-released Puerto Rico Strong anthology, written and illustrated by some of the top Puerto Rican and Latino talent in the comic book industry, will go to the United Way of Puerto Rico. Lion Forge's pledge will assist with nonprofit child care facilities, community schools, and healthcare centers. Lion Forge will match the first $25,000 made from Puerto Rico Strong, with Diamond Comic Distributors also donating 5% of its retail sales to United Way of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico Strong is a deep dive into Puerto Rican culture. Stories range from Taino warriors taking a stand against colonization and Puerto Rico's ugly history of forced sterilization to Puerto Rican pride and even space exploration. Puerto Rico Strong can be personal stories. It can be stories about Puerto Rico's history. Marco Lopez, an editor and writer on the anthology, told the Washington Post. It can be social political stories or stories based on Puerto Rico's culture, or just fantastic made-up sci-fi fantasy stories. Writer Vita Ayala, Batman Beyond, Supergirl, and Deadpool co-creator Fabian Niciasa are some of the familiar comic book industry names attached. The goal from Lion Forge was to create something lasting that would have an impact beyond just making a donation. I figured the last way we could help is use what we're good at, which is making comic books, said Derek Ruiz, an editor-writer on Puerto Rico Strong. Neil Swartz, another editor on the anthology, was inspired by the industry veteran's response to Puerto Rico Strong's call to action. When we blew the horn, so many people wanted to answer the call from different walks of life, no matter what their forte was, whether it was comics or webcomics, Swartz said. What we put together is amazing, and That diversity is really what speaks to why this project works so well, why it's important to all of us, because we all felt that passion for Puerto Rico. Lopez, Swartz, and Ruiz all agree that integral to the success of Puerto Rico Strong's unifying collaborative efforts was the work of Lion Forge editorial assistant Desiree Rodriguez, who, like Lopez and Ruiz, is Puerto Rican and felt a special connection to the project. She served as an editor on Puerto Rico Strong. Rodriguez already had a database of the top Latino talent in comics and was responsible for bringing many of Puerto Rico Strong's collaborators on board. As a lifelong fan of comic book culture, she is excited to see Puerto Rico Strong in comic book shops, but she says just as important is its arrival in libraries and schools to serve as an education tool. There's so little history taught about Puerto Rico. One of the things I noticed when the hurricane news was at its peak was that a lot of people didn't know about the Jones Act. They didn't know about the economic struggles that Puerto Rico has continuously gone through and the history behind that, Rodriguez said. One of the goals was to teach people. That way people could read this and learn about the island through actual Puerto Ricans, whose history is so often told through the privileged point of view. On my blog, New Kids on the Netflix blog by Lorraine Ali, Los Angeles Times. Imagine if 16 Candles got a modern-day hood makeover. New Wave has given way to hip-hop. Bullies are gang members, not jocks, and geeks aren't just great at science. They can determine a weapon's caliber, sight unseen. That was a .38. One yells to another as they run from the sound of random gunfire at a party. No, it sounded like a .45, argues the other. Another gunshot rings out. 357, they say in unison. On my block is clearly not the Grassy High. The new Netflix coming-of-age comedy that premiered Friday follows 4 childhood friends from a tough Los Angeles neighborhood as they enter high school. But this 10-episode half-hour series is not an extension of Dope, Snowfall, or Boys in the Hood. It's part of a wave of recent productions that consider teens of color as, well, normal teens rather than the cool sidekicks of white kids or the underprivileged victims of blighted surroundings. Jane the Virgin and A Wrinkle in Time are just a couple examples of young adult narratives presented from a fresh perspective. The filter may be different, but the experience is a familiar one. The teens and early 20s can be a confusing nightmare of a journey, rife with dramatic, comedic material. Co-created by Lauren Ingurich of Awkward, Eddie Gonzalez, and Jeremy Haft, On My Block is not a sweeping cinematic production or insightful commentary on urban life, and its art is a clumsy but endearing teen comedy. The series follows childhood friends Mons, played by Sierra Capri, Caesar, played by Diego Tanaco, Ruben, played by Jason Ganeo, and Jamal, played by Brett Gray, as they enter high school, vowing to stick together no matter what. But they're all immediately challenged by peer pressure, hormonal surges, and their own sense of identity. Jose is a nascent feminist who vacillates between celebrating her blossoming sexuality and hiding it from the men who have started catcalling her. Ruben, aka Ruby, is the smart negotiator of the group who wants to be seen as a man, but his ideas of manhood don't square with the reality of sharing a room with his abuela, her light-up nativity scenes, and Our Lady of Guadalupe collection. Caesar is trapped in a family legacy of gang life, while Jamal is supposed to be a football hero like his dad, except he's a terrible player terrified of injuring himself. On My Block suffers from some stiff writing and amateur performances, but it possesses a charm that's hard to resist. Perhaps it's because nothing earth-shattering happens here, and for a story that takes place in the hood, it's a refreshing turnabout. Life goes on just as it did for the teens of the OC, even when there's gunfire outside the door. Kushner Koss routinely filed false NYC housing paperwork by Bernard Condon, the Associated Press, New York. When the Kushner Koss bought 3 apartment buildings in a gentrifying neighborhood of Queens in 2015, most of the tenants were protected by special rules that prevent developers from pushing them out, raising rents, and turning a tidy profit. That's exactly what the company then run by Jared Kushner, did, and with remarkable speed. 2 years later, sold all 3 buildings for $60 million, nearly 50% more than it paid. Now a clue has emerged as to how President Donald Trump's son-in-law's firm was able to move so fast. The Kushner routinely filed false paperwork with the city declaring it had 0 rent-regulated tenants in dozens of buildings it owned across the city, and in fact it had hundreds. While none of the documents during a 3-year period when Kushner was CEO bore his personal signature, they provide a window into the ethics of the business empire he ran before he went on to become one of the most trusted advisors to the President of the United States. His barefaced greed sent Aaron Carr, founder of the Housing Rights Initiative, a tenants' rights watchdog that compiled the work permit application documents and shared them with the Associated Press. The fact that the company was falsifying all these appropriations with the government shows a sordid attempt to avert accountability and get a rapid return on its investment. Kushner Cost responded in a statement that it outsources the preparation of such documents to third parties that are reviewed by independent counsel, and if mistakes or violations are identified, corrective action is taken immediately. Kushner would never deny any tenant their due process rights, it said, adding that the company has renovated thousands of apartments and developments with minimal complaints over the past 30 years. For the 3 Queens buildings in the borough's Astoria neighborhood, the Kushner Cost checked a box on construction permit applications in 2015 that indicated the buildings had 0 rent-regulated tenants. Tax records filed a few months later showed the company inherited as many as 94 rent-regulated units from the previous owner. An all Housing Rights Initiative found the Kushner filed at least 80 false applications for construction permits in 34 buildings across New York City from 2013 to 2016, all of them indicating there were no rent-regulated tenants. Instead, tax documents show there were more than 300 rent-regulated units. Nearly all of the permit applications were signed by a Kushner employee, including sometimes the chief operating officer. Had the Kushner companies disclosed those rent-regulated tenants, it could have triggered stricter oversight of construction crews by the city, including possibly unscheduled sweeps on site by inspectors to keep the company from harassing tenants and getting them to leave. Instead, current and former tenants of the Queens buildings told the AP that they were subjected to extensive construction with banging, drilling, dust, and leaking water that they believe were part of targeted harassment to get them to leave and cleared a way for higher-paying renters. It was noisy. There were complaints. I got mice, said Melman Rudolph Romano, adding that the Kushner companies tried to increase his rent by 60%, an accusation the company denied. They cleaned the place out. I watched the whole building leave. Tax records show those rent-regulated units that numbered as many as 94 when Kushner took over fell to 25 by 2016. The Kushner buildings across the city records showed frequent complaints about construction going on early in the morning or late at night against the rules, improper or illegal construction, and work without a permit. At a 6-story walk-up in Manhattan's East Village that was once home to the beat poet Allen Ginsberg, the Kushner companies filed an application to begin construction in late 2013 that again listed 0 rent-regulated tenants. Tax records a few months later showed 7 rent-regulated units. All of a sudden, there was drilling. You heard the drilling in the middle of the night, said one of the rent-regulated tenants, Mary Ann Seawood, 67, who lives on Social Security payments and odd jobs. There were rats coming in from the abandoned building next door. The hallways were always filled with lumber and sawdust and plaster. A knock on the door came a few weeks later and an offer of at least $10,000 if she agreed to leave the building. I know it's pretty horrible, but we can help you get out. Seawood recalls the man saying, we can offer you money. Seawood turned down the cash and sued instead. She said she wanted a year's worth of free rent and a new refrigerator. New York City Council member Richie Torres, who plans to launch an investigation into permit applications, said the Kushners appear to be engaging in what I call the weaponization of construction. Rent stabilization is a fixture of New York City that can bedevil developers seeking to make money off buildings. To free themselves of its restrictions, landlords usually have to wait until the rent rises above $2,733 a month something that can take years given the small increases allowed each year. Submitting false documents to the city's Department of Buildings for construction permits is a misdemeanor, which can carry fines of up to $25,000. But real estate experts say it is often flouted with little to no consequences. Landlords who do so get off with no more than a demand from the city, sometimes a year or more later, to file an amended form with the correct numbers. Housing Rights Initiative found the Kushner companies filed dozens of amended forms for the buildings mentioned in the documents, most of them a year or two later. There's a lack of tools to go after landlords who harass tenants, and there's a lack of enforcement, said Seth Miller, a state lawyer who used to work at a state housing agency overseeing rent regulations. Until officials inspect every construction site, you're going to have this incentive for landlords to make life uncomfortable for tenants. New York City's Department of Buildings declined to comment specifically on the false application documents, but said it is ramping up its monitoring of construction, hiring 72 new inspectors and other staff under city laws recently passed to crack down on tenant harassment. We won't tolerate landlords who use construction to harass tenants, no matter who they are, said spokesman Joseph Sodavere. He added that 2 of the Queen's buildings are under investigation by a tenant harassment task force. Exactly how much money the Kushner companies earn from the buildings mentioned in the documents is unclear. Of those 34 buildings, only 3 in Queens and a 4th in Brooklyn appear to have been sold. The company also likely made money by reducing the number of rent-regulated tenants and bringing in those who would pay more. Jared Kushner, who stepped down as CEO of the Kushner Company last year before taking on his advisory role at the White House, sold a part of his real estate holdings as required under government ethic rules, but he retained stakes in many properties, including Westminster Management, the Kushner Company's subsidiary that oversees its residential properties. A financial disclosure last year showed he still owns a stake in Westminster and earned $1.6 million from the holding. Back in Queens, the mailman Romano was one of the few rent-regulated tenants who fought back. He hired a lawyer who found out he was protected from the 60% rent hike by law. Something Romano did not know at the time. He said his rent, which was set to increase to $3,750, was restored to $2,350. Romano is still in the building, where he has lived for 9 years with his wife, 4 children, and his guests from the construction days, the mice. I still haven't gotten rid of them. African-American vet dies at age 100, the Associated Press, Raleigh. A woman believed to be one of the last African-American women to serve overseas during World War II has died at the age of 100. Haywood Funeral Home in Raleigh said on its website that Millie Dunn Vesey will be buried today at Raleigh National Cemetery. Her niece, Elsie Thompson, told WUNC that her aunt's heart was tired. After she graduated from high school in 1942, Vesey enlisted in what was called the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. Her unit was the only all-black, all-female battalion to serve overseas during World War II. Vesey served in France and England with the unit, which sorted and routed mail for millions of American service members and civilians. She later became the first female president of the Raleigh NAACP. Stadium price to be released today. The final price for the baseball stadium being built in downtown Fayetteville will be released at a baseball committee meeting before a city council meeting tonight, Deputy City Manager Christoph Bayer said. The city council will also vote on the 4th Amendment to the contract with Charlotte-based builder Barton Mallow, who is managing the stadium construction. The baseball committee meeting will start at 4:30 p.m. The regular city council meeting will start at 7 p.m. Both will be at City Hall on Hay Street in downtown. The release of the price has been delayed. The city council originally was set to release the guaranteed maximum price for the baseball stadium on February 8th. That date came from the city's baseball stadium financing center, which was obtained by the Fayetteville Observer in January. A guaranteed maximum price, often called a GMP, is a cost-type contract in which the contractor is paid for the actual cost of construction. A Houston Astros minor league baseball team will play at the baseball stadium starting in 2019 for at least 30 years, according to a contract the city signed with the team in December of 2016. City Councilman Jim Arp, chairman of the baseball committee, previously told the Fayetteville Observer that he is not concerned by the delay. "I don't want to do it piecemeal," Arp said. "I want to make sure when we get the number, it's the final number." I don't want to. The City Council must wait until it receives the guaranteed maximum price to apply for limited obligation bonds to fund the construction of the stadium with the North Carolina Local Government Commission. The City Council recently voted 9-1, with City Councilman Tyrone Williams voting in opposition for the third amendment of the contract between the city and Barton Malone. City officials said the baseball stadium construction remains on schedule. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. In making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at area code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. And it's the top of the hour, time for the obituaries. Death notices. The following death notices were given, and complete details will be given in future editions of the Fayetteville Observer. In the Cape Fear region, Sophia Moffett, 48, of St. Paul's, L.E. Floyd Funeral Home and Cremations. Shirley Oxenine, 63, of Roland, Boyles Funeral Home, Roland. Carrie Fred Strickland, 67, of Laurinburg, Richard Boyles Funeral Service, and Curtis Locklear, 71, of Rayford, Boyles Funeral Home at Red Springs. Region and elsewhere, Michael Fuzzy Oxenine, Colonial Heights, Virginia. Mr. Michael Fuzzy Oxenine, 57, of Colonial Heights, Virginia, formerly of Fairmont, died Friday, March 16, 2018. The funeral will be held Wednesday at 2 p.m. at an East Drive Praise and Worship Center. The visitation will be at Floyd Funeral Services of Fairmont Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and the burial will be at Fairpoint Free Will Baptist Church Cemetery. Mabel Short Thrush, 80, of Laurinburg, formerly of Rockingham, died Friday, March 16, 2018. The funeral will be held Wednesday at 1 p.m. at Richard Boyles Funeral Service Chapel, and the visitation will be prior to the service at the funeral home Wednesday from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The burial will be at Richard County Memorial Park. Services are entrusted to Richard Boyles Funeral Service. Sequoia Matthew Hunt, 43, of Pembroke, died Friday, March 16, 2018. Funeral will be held Wednesday at 3 p.m. at Floyd Memorial Chapel in Lumberton. The visitation will be at Floyd Mortuary and Crematory Incorporated Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. The burial will be at Eddie Lee Hammond's Family Cemetery of Lumberton. Services are entrusted to Floyd Mortuary and Crematory. Gerald Torrey Evans, 68, of Fort Washington, died Friday, March 9, 2018. The funeral will be held Tuesday at noon at Wiseman Mortuary Chapel, and the viewing will be at the funeral home Tuesday from 9 a.m. to noon. The burial will be at Lafayette Memorial Park West, and services are entrusted to Wiseman Mortuary. And in Cumberland County, Walter Philip Red Ryan, age 89, passed away on March 15th. There are no available funeral arrangements at this time. In loving memory of Xavier Henderson, March 19th, 1973, to April 4th, 2003. We miss having you here with us each and every day, but the love, joy, and memories you left are in our hearts to stay. Love, Mom, Pete, and Aunt Linda, Degree, Zester, and the kids, Ajaya, Zoe, and Xavier. And that concludes today's obituary. Billy Graham. Jesus embraced his fate, took our sins to lead us to salvation. From the writings of the late Billy Graham. Long before his final journey to Jerusalem, Jesus warned his disciples that after he arrived there, he would be arrested, put on trial, and then executed by the Roman authorities. At the time, they didn't understand what he was saying. In fact, they protested and urged him to go another way. Why then didn't Jesus try to escape from that final confrontation? Why didn't he avoid what awaited him? The reason was because he knew that the time had come for him to finish the work God had given him to do, to become the final sacrifice for our sins through his death on the cross. You see, our greatest problem is that we are separated from God, and the reason can be summarized in one word: sin. Sin isn't just something we do that's wrong. Sin ultimately is our rebellion against God. When we sin, we are telling God that we want to run our lives without him, and we treat him like an enemy. The Bible says once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. Colossians chapter 1, verse 21. But God loves us, and he doesn't want us to be separated from him forever. He wants to be our friend. And that's why Jesus Christ came into the world. He was without sin, but on the cross all our sins were placed in him, and he took upon himself the judgment and hell that we deserved. As you approach this Easter season, turn your heart and mind to God and his great love for you. Then thank Jesus for refusing to dodge the agony and shame of the cross, but willingly sacrificing his life for you. By faith, open your life to him today. Dear Abby, long-time addiction remains a secret in woman's past. Gene Phillips. Dear Abby, I'm a 53-year-old woman who has finally met a kind, decent man after many abusive relationships. I honor our bond and have been open about my past, which has been colorful, to say the least. I was an addict. It was a long addiction that left me homeless and almost killed me many times. I've kept this part of my life a secret from everyone out of shame and fear of judgment. I would love to be open about it with him and let him know how much drugs affected me. I don't want to drive him away. Any advice is appreciated. Ex-addict in California. Dear ex-addict. In one sentence, you say you have been open about your past. In the next, you say you are keeping your addiction and what it cost you a secret. You don't say how long you have known this man or whether you plan to make this relationship permanent. If you do, you should tell him about your entire past, because if he finds out some other way, that is what could cause him to end the relationship. And dear Abby, I have a problem with my family. I'm a woman in my 60s who does not and never has driven a car or any other vehicle. My older sister and brother think I have leprosy because I don't drive. How can I, or anyone in the same position as I am, get through to them that not everyone drives, and that those of us who don't or can't aren't like anyone else on the planet? Not behind the wheel. Dear Not Behind the Wheel, please clip this and share it with your sister and brother. Not everyone drives or aspires to. Some people are phobic about getting behind the wheel. Others recognize they are not good at it, while still others can't afford a car. Unless you have been imposing upon your relatives for transportation, they should not be critical of your choice. My late mother was a non-driver, and she quit after skidding into the back of a coal truck during a Wisconsin winter. I'll never forget it, because it left me with a scar on my knee when it hit the air conditioning vent. Viewed from my perspective, she made the right choice, and so have you. It's a wise person who knows their limitations. And dear Abby, this may seem minor in the scheme of things, but it's driving me crazy. Occasionally, we have a potluck day at work. The problem is, there are always people who eat. Others never bring food to share. It's usually the men in our office, those who hold higher positions and make far more money than the rest of us. They're also the ones who eat the most. They go back for seconds before the rest of us have eaten. If they do occasionally bring anything, it's usually a bag of chips. They're tired of paying for their lunches when they are more than capable of providing something. take out from a deli or even asking their wives to help. I'm also tired of going to get my lunch and discover most of the food is already gone. I welcome your advice on any tips your readers may have. Fed Up in Des Moines. They're fed up. Try this. Sign a list of what people need to bring to the potluck so there won't be duplication. And when you do, specify that only those who participate can eat the food. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabby.com or PO Box 69440, Los Angeles, California 90069. This article comes from Universal Euclid. Horoscope by Stella Wilder. Born today, you are accomplished, popular, and highly intelligent. And yet there are times when you are not as contented as you feel you should be. This is because you do not always invest much time in your personal relationships. Pisces, February 19th through March 20th. You may feel that you are short on resources, but there is something worth doing today, even if it means dipping into a special source. Aries, March 21st through April 19th. It's a good day to revisit old haunts, even if only in your memory. You'll be able to determine if things were better then or not. Taurus, April 20th through May 20th. You're good to get things done in a manner that puts others in their place, but that may not be the healthiest move at this time. Gemini, May 21st through June 20th. Others may be confused by your ability to morph so well today. Your true Gemini nature is revealing itself. There are two of you. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd. You're in self-protective mode at this time, and you're not likely to be seduced by someone who is after you for all the wrong reasons. Leo, July 23rd through August 22nd. You'll find yourself gravitating toward those who, but a short time ago, you would have been the first to avoid. Things change. Virgo, August 23rd through September 22nd. Give yourself the gift of time today by doing what you can as quickly as possible and freeing up a few hours. Libra, September 23rd through October 22nd. You're putting a great deal on the line right now without knowing just what it is you might win if things work out your way. Investigate. Scorpio, October 23rd through November 21st. You know well what others want of you right now, but you're not likely to give it without asking for something big in return. Sagittarius, November 22nd through December 21st. You may be suffering under a certain delusion at this time, but what happens today will almost surely remind you of what's real. Capricorn, December 22nd through January 19th. Quality and quantity are both important today, but the more you have of something that is the best of the best, the better you will be. Aquarius, January 20th through February 18th. Take care that you don't let others make certain decisions for you simply because you couldn't be bothered. You must remain in control. Copyright 2018 United Features Syndicate. And support groups for Mondays. Celebrate Recovery meets from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Aaron Lake Baptist Church on 1130 Bingham Drive. This is a multi-denominational Christ-based 12-step program. It can include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, abuse, drugs, alcohol, and more. For more information, call 424-7211 or contact John at 723-2319. Suicide Grief Support Group meets at 6:30 p.m. at Manna Church on 5117 Cliffdale Road, Building A. For those who are grieving the loss of a relative, friend, co-worker, or loved one. For more information, call area code 910-302-8548. The Tia Hart Community Recovery Program meets from 7 to 8 p.m. at 116 East Elwood Avenue in Rayford. For more information, call 848-1872. Al-Anon meets at 7 p.m. at Haymount United Methodist Church Youth Activity Center on 1900 Fort Bragg Road. For more information, call 678-8002. Divorce Care meets from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Manna Church on 5117 Cliffdale Road. For more information, contact Tim or Tracy by calling 892-5439. In Christ We Do Recover meets from 8 to 9 p.m. This is an open meeting of the Hope Harbor Christian Mission on US 301 South Service Road. and deals with chemical dependency. For more information, contact Woody at 423-0608 or 424-8800, extension 272. Alcoholics Anonymous has several meetings on Mondays, 7 a.m., noon, 5:30, and 8 p.m. meetings at 626 Sandalwood Drive. There's a 10 a.m. meeting at 40 Marion Road in Lumberton. There's a noon meeting at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church on 1601 Rayford Road. There are noon and 5:30 p.m. meetings at 604 German Street. There are noon and 6:30 p.m. meetings at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton. Highland Presbyterian Church on 111 Highland Avenue has a 6:30 p.m. meeting. My Rover Reese on 560 Wilkes Road has a 6:30 p.m. meeting. There's a 7 p.m. meeting at Spring Lake Methodist Church on 111 North Bragg Boulevard. United Methodist Church on 4955 Legion Road has an 8 p.m. meeting. That is in Hope Mills. And there's an 8 p.m. meeting at 400 Prospect Road in Pembroke. Alcoholics Anonymous hotlines are 678-8733 or 678-8002. Recovery in Action meets at 8 p.m. at Manna Church on 5117 Cliffdale Road. For more information, call 867-9151. The Landing, a meeting for teens 13 to 18 seeking healing from their hurts, hang-ups, and habits. Meets from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Aaron Lake Baptist Church Family Life Center on 1130 Bingham Drive. Narcotics Anonymous. To find weekly meeting times and locations, call 866-418-9500 or visit their website, crna.org. People Assisting Victims meets at 7:30 p.m. in Cumberland Community Foundation Building on Green Street. Sex Addicts Anonymous. To find meeting times and locations, call 1-800-477-8191. Widows and Widowers meets at 6 p.m. This group rotates restaurant locations. You can call one of three numbers for more information. You can call 497-5682, 568-5922, or 867-9582. Look Good, Feel Better meets at 9 a.m. Cape Fear Valley Cancer Center Conference Room at 6 p.m. at Health Pavilion North Cancer Center. A licensed cosmetologist will help women learn to compensate for changes in skin and hair caused by cancer treatment. You can register by calling 615-1434. Take Off Pounds Sensibly meets at 5:30 p.m. at First Baptist Church on 202 Summit Drive in Sanford. For more information, call 1-800-932-8677 or go to their website at tops.org. That's TOPS.org. So Bannon Never Returns from Europe by Jonah Goldberg. One of the things that motivated my old friend Andrew Breitbart was his righteous indignation at being called a racist. That's a running theme in his book, Righteous Indignation. Andrew Breitbart despised racism. His friend Dan Shapiro told me he took pride in rejecting racism and fighting it tooth and nail. He saw it as a form of bullying. Nothing devastated him more personally than being maligned as racist. He would also advise conservatives not to be deterred if their opponents on the left unfairly called them racist, something he rightly believed happened all the time. Indeed, one of the things that got him out of bed in the morning was fighting the media democratic narrative that conservatives are all a bunch of racists. In one famous episode, members of the Congressional Black Caucus walked through a crowd of Tea Party protesters seeking a provocation. Subsequently, they claimed the attendants screamed the N-word and other epithets at them. The press reported it all as fact. Andrew, nothing the sea of cameras and iPhones at the event, offered a $100,000 reward to anyone who could provide proof of the CBC's claims. No one came. And that was Andrew Breitbart I was proud to call my friend. Last week, just after the 6th anniversary of Andrew's demise, the man who replaced him at Breitbart News, Steve Bannon, launched his Blood and Soil tour of Europe. The climax was a speech to the ultra-right French National Front, in which he perverted Andrew's defiant message, preferring to embrace the characters Andrew dedicated himself to fighting. Let them call you racist, Bannon told the crowd. Let them call you xenophobes. Let them call you nativists. Wear it as a badge of honor. He continued, the tide of history is with us, and it will compel us to victory after victory after victory. There's something darkly comic about a guy who in the last year was fired from the White House, ousted from his website, and defenestrated the patriots who supported him, speaking to a sparse crowd of Vichy nostalgists, claiming that the tide of history is with him. If Andrew were still around, I bet he'd tell Bannon to stay in Europe, not just because his tendency to wear several shirts at once seems more consistent with European fashion. Bannon's understanding of conservatism is entirely European. In a famous and famously misunderstood essay, Why I Am Not a Conservative, Friedrich Hayek, a Nobel Prize-winning economist and political theorist, wrote, conservatism proper is a legitimate, probably necessary, and certainly widespread attitude of opposition to drastic change. It has, since the French Revolution, for a century and a half played an important role in European politics. Until the rise of socialism, its opposite was liberalism. What Hayek meant by liberalism is a laissez-faire, limited government philosophy that defined the best parts of the French and Scottish Enlightenments. These classical liberals fought with conservatives of all stripes, arguing for inalienable and universal human rights. They were opposed by theocrats, aristocrats, monarchists, and arch-traditionalists who argued for the rule of altar and throne, caste and guild. Let Bannon stay in Europe and hand out torches for the martyrs. His un-American stick has no place here. I'm sure Andrew would agree. Jonah Goldberg's new book, The Suicide of the West, will be released on April 24th. You can email him at goldbergcolumn@gmail.com or via Twitter at Jonah, NRO. Opinion, the Observer's editorial, downtown development of unprecedented scale. This is getting interesting. Things are about to accelerate with downtown redevelopment. Work has already begun on the minor league baseball stadium that will sit across Hay Street from City Hall, tucked up behind the old Prince Charles Hotel. The hotel itself has been gutted and its remodeling will soon begin. The building will mostly become apartment space, which has been at a premium downtown and should be filled quickly. The ground floor will hold restaurant and retailing space. After that will come a parking deck. The original plan was to build a 150-unit apartment building and a hotel on the property, but the developers, Prince Charles Holdings, have changed their minds about that. Now there will be a hotel above the parking deck, and adjoining will be a commercial building with 84,000 square feet of office space. Developers say they already have two businesses interested in leasing space in the office building, and they expect letters of intent soon. Jordan Jones, the project manager for Prince Charles Holdings, told an Observer reporter that this will be premium office space designed to attract top employers and maybe a corporate headquarters. Since day one, Jones said, we have wanted to use it as a tool to keep bringing private investment to downtown. The office building, he said, will be the tallest structure downtown, exceeding the height of the Sistel building. The parking deck is likely to get plenty of use by the hotel, the office building, and the ballpark, as well as by downtown visitors. Until now, downtown has been a tough sell for corporate office space. There simply hasn't been much interest. The city-owned Festival Park Plaza has spent most of its life as a partially empty building, although it now houses a Blue Cross Blue Shield call center and the offices of several departments. The original developers of the building went bankrupt, and the city decided to take it over. Long-term paying tenants have been a long time coming. Jones believes the ballpark is already a change in corporate interest in downtown locations that is going to be a big draw for further economic development in the city. The hotel, which is slated to have 115 to 120 rooms, is expected to open in 2020, a year after the Prince Charles and the ballpark opened for business. Developers are talking with several hotel companies about running it, and Jones predicts it will be one of the highest quality in this market. Downtown Fayetteville has been steadily rebuilding since the late 1990s, with some of the biggest development coming in the early 2000s, including the 400-block condominiums, Festival Park and Festival Park Plaza. But what's happening now is different. Things are happening on a larger scale than we've seen in the past. There are 5 transformative projects underway or in advanced planning stages: the ballpark, the Prince Charles, the parking deck, the hotel, and the office building. It's a burst on development unlike any preceding it in Fayetteville. It's beginning to feel like another new era is beginning downtown, and that means a new era for all of Fayetteville as well. So far, we like what we're seeing. Letters to the editor. Gen X and a grain of salt. David Van Pelt of Fayetteville writes, Gen X, it finally happened. The call to close Keymores by the Star News of Wilmington. Unfortunately, like so many of today's journalists, it's easier to just throw stones instead of some serious thought or even a little research. I was first struck by the odd scale being used of parts per trillion, PPT, so let's put the EPA acceptable standard for some containments in drinking water we may better know on the same scale to get some perspective. Cyanide, 20,000 ppt. Lead, standard is 0, but 15,000 ppt is considered acceptable, and bromate, 100,000 ppt. You may not be familiar with bromate. It is a byproduct of disinfecting drinking water and causes an increased chance of cancer. Makes the standard being proposed for Gen X seem trivial by comparison. Then there's the study often referenced. Given the study was performed by Keymores, one would expect it may be a bit slanted, but it indicated the captures began showing up in rats given doses at a concentration of 50 milligrams per liter and higher daily. Put on the same scale as the others, the rats were fed 50 million ppt daily. Does this mean Gen X isn't a problem? No. If you can avoid contaminating the environment, you should do it. I'm just not sure it's time to set one's hair on fire and start throwing millions of my tax dollars at it either. The legislature may be correct that a little more study is required before we burn the plant down. State briefs. Climate attacks correctional officer, or inmate attacks correctional officer with shank, Morganton. Authorities say an officer in a western North Carolina prison is in stable condition after he was attacked by an inmate with a homemade weapon. The State Corrections Department said in a news release that the officer suffered multiple wounds in the attack Saturday night at Foothills Correctional Institution in Morganton. Spokesman Jerry Higgins says the inmate attacked the officer with a shank. The inmate will be charged with assault. Steve, prisons have severe staffing shortages which put workers in danger. Last fall, 4 employees were killed during an escape attempt at Pasquotank Correctional Institution in Elizabeth City, and an officer was attacked there earlier this month. Prosecutors say they want the death penalty for an inmate accused of beating to death an officer at Bertie Correctional Institution last year. Woman sentenced for a fatal shooting at Mall, Wilmington. A woman who shot and killed her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend in broad daylight in a mall parking lot was sentenced to between 31 years and 40 years in prison. Local media outlets report that 20-year-old Trinita Campbell pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and discharging a weapon into an occupied property. Killed was 26-year-old Catherine Ruth Ballard, a hospital cafeteria worker. The shooting happened April 1st after Ballard ran into her ex-boyfriend, Darius Nelson, who was with Campbell, his new girlfriend, inside Independence Mall in Wilmington. A confrontation that started inside the mall continued outside, where surveillance cameras captured the shooting. Ballard was struck once in the back of her head. Nelson faces charges of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder and felony obstruction of justice. Ambassador Haley to speak at Duke. Durham, UN Ambassador and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley will give a free public talk next month at Duke University. The Herald-Sun of Durham reports Haley will give the Terry Sanford Distinguished Lecture Confronting Today's Global Governance Challenges on April 5th. Haley has supported continued sanctions against Russia for its actions against Ukraine and programs in support of human rights. At the UN Security Council, she negotiated for the unanimous passage of the strongest sanctions ever placed on North Korea. Peter Fever, who will interview Haley, is a professor of political science and public policy and director of Duke's program in American Grand Strategy. He says Haley has earned a reputation as a forthright and compelling articulator of America's role. About 1,000 free tickets are available starting Tuesday. These briefs come from the Associated Press. and this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at area code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. The radio host is Robert Dean, and I am proud to serve you today. Navy looks at surfing as way to counteract PTSD by Tony Perry, The Washington Post. In song and prose, surfing has long been celebrated as a way to soothe the mind and invigorate the body. The scientific evidence has been limited. Now the Navy has embarked on a $1 million research project to determine whether surfing has therapeutic value, especially for military personnel with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, or sleep problems. Researchers say surfing offers great promise as therapy. It is a challenging exercise in an outdoor environment. People surf individually or in groups. Military sufferers who are reluctant to attend traditional group therapy open up about their common experiences when talking to other surfers on the beach. Lots of times it becomes therapy under the guise of recreation, said Helen Metzger, head of the Health and Wellness Department of Naval Medical Center at San Diego. They talk about surfing, then it gets into things that are deeper than that, common experiences, common traumas. For many of our patients, exercise is the best medicine, and exercise in a natural environment is even better, said James Lamar II, a physician at the Naval Medical Center, San Diego, and a volunteer in the hospital's surfing programming. Surfing is a way back to a healthy life, the kind of life they had before they were traumatized. The military saw a 65% increase in mental health diagnoses among active duty personnel between 2001 and 2011, according to a 2013 study done by the Congressional Research Service. Cases of PTSD increased by 650% according to the study, and more than 900,000 individuals were diagnosed with at least one mental disorder during that decade. The Navy study, led by clinical psychologist Kristen Walter, analyzes questionnaires answered by service members before, during, and after a program of surfing 1 day a week for 6 weeks. The first group of 14 active duty Marines and sailors in the 6-week surfing program all had shown signs of major depressive disorder, some with signs of PTSD, researchers said. To the researchers, the initial results suggest that surfing can lead to a decrease in insomnia and feelings of anxiety, and a decline in an overall negative view of life and other symptoms of depression. The study, which began last year, will follow up with participants to check on their sleeping patterns and whether improvements in their mental outlook have been long-lasting. The study also plans to test the hypothesis that while hiking is beneficial, surfing is even more so. While some patients will go surfing, others will be taken on hikes. When the 3-year study is complete, there will have been 118 participants in surfing groups and 43 in hiking groups. For physicians who have treated service members, the initial upbeat results are not surprising. I'm a believer, said Commander Natalie Wells, preventive medicine physician and director of military population health at the Naval Health Research Center in San Diego. It's huge that Navy medicine is thinking outside the box, said Betty Michaelwicz-Krog, an exercise physiologist at the hospital and director of the surfing program. Physicians in the military medical system and the Department of Veterans Affairs are hoping the study will prove that surfing is therapy, not just recreation. We all know it's good, we can see it, said Captain Eric Stedge Larson, a pain management specialist who worked in San Diego surfing program before being assigned to the Navy Hospital in Portsmouth, Virginia. For some folks, there's nothing like it, but we need science to get the administrators on board. Chasing Rainbows from the Life section. Abundant rainfall on Hawaii's Big Island makes for spectacular waterfalls by Brian J. Catwell, the Seattle Times, Hilo, Hawaii. The first time you fly into the Kona coast on Hawaii's Big Island, you'll be struck by two things: the nearly relentless sunshine, moderated by volcanic smoke that locals call VOD, and the vast, barren fields of black lava rock stretching northward, more testimony to this island's active volcanoes. The first time you cross the island to the town of Hilo, you'll likely notice two different things. A, it rains a lot. B, it's very green. Two massive volcanic peaks, Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea, split the island and serve to catch the weather systems that ride on trade winds from the cast. That means the Hilo side gets the rain, and that also means the Hilo side gets something pretty special in Hawaii: waterfalls. Rainbows, rock gardens. When a tropical sun comes out after a cleansing rain, Hawaiian waterfalls create rainbows. They spread life-giving moisture in their rocky canyons and nurture dainty wild orchids and dripping rock gardens of mosses and ferns. They churn clouds of cooling mist, calming as you lift your face to catch it. But that kind of soul nourishment, who needs a bowl of poke? And if you find the right spot, you can swim or kayak at a waterfall's base without the rapid onset hypothermia you'd risk in a mountain stream near Seattle. We even found one where guests of a small resort routinely rappel down the waterfall's face. Hilo itself is worth a visit to appreciate the historic character and lazy pace of a real Hawaiian town, population about 44,000, that's not smack in the middle of the tourist track if you pick a day when cruise ships aren't visiting. There are several easily accessible waterfalls around Hilo and along the Hamakakua coast to the north, including gushing Rainbow Falls, minutes from downtown on the Waikiki River, and Akaka Falls, one of the most stunning waterfalls in all of Hawaii, in a state park about 11 miles north of town. Rock climbing fish. Akaka is where Kolokoli stream plummets 442 feet down a mossy cliff into a deep bowl ringed by hush and lush greenery. In Hawaiian, Alaska, Akaka means a rent or split, and the falls and its gorge indeed rend the jungle-like landscape. To reach a viewpoint, follow a paved 0.4-mile loop path with stairs, not wheelchair accessible, lined with tropical plants and flowers from across the Pacific. One of the most intriguing tales surrounding the falls and of evolution in general is of a 5-inch black and orange native fish, a type of goby known as the O-Apu alamo'o, which hatches in the stream above. The Akaka Falls larvae wash over the falls and then out to sea for 6 months before the fish return to the stream and use a suction disc on their bellies to climb water-slickened rocks back to the top of the falls to spawn. Get to Akaka Falls between 9 and 11 a.m. It opens at 8:30, $5 per car for non-residents, to beat tourist bus crowds and get the best photos with sunlight all the way to the fall's base. Skip breakfast at your Hilo Hotel, follow Highway 19, Hawaii Belt Road, north to the Akaka Falls turnoff, and stop down the hill from the falls in the steepy old Hawaii sugar plantation village of Hanamu for pastries at Mr. Ed's Bakery and coffee from the Hilo Sharks Coffee. Back in Hilo, the Rainbow Falls Viewpoint, part of a state park with no fee, also attracts many tourists and its parking lot can fill. But here's a way to get an up-close look from a private viewing deck on the opposite side of the river. Book a waterfall tour with Hawaii Forest and Trail Guide service, as we did. America's wettest city. We met Hilo-born tour guide Frank Loney, a 68-year-old retired house trainer, at Hawaii Forest and Trail's new downtown Hilo office, and were soon on our way with another couple in an air-conditioned van. Hilo is the right place for a waterfall tour. Loney told us you find waterfalls in rainforests, he said, and with 127 inches of rain in an average year, Hilo is the wettest city in America. The island's wettest point is about 6 miles upslope from Hilo, where the mean annual rainfall exceeds 300 inches, according to the National Weather Service. And it's not like Seattle, the drizzle capital of America. The night before our October tour, rain gushed like a fire hose on the roof of our rental cabin south of town, so every waterfall we visited was roaring. First stop was where a narrow, old, lightly trafficked bridge cross directly over a waterfall on the Honolulu River. I know 2 people who have jumped off this bridge to the bottom of the waterfall, Loney said. What you do is park your pickup here, crosswise, put the tailgate over the rail, run the length of the pickup bed, and jump to get past those rocks down there. Our destination was OK Farms, a sprawling spread growing bananas, macadamia nuts, coffee, citrus fruits, and more. Down a narrow track was the river, and a covered platform where we stopped to look over the top of 80-foot-high, 100-foot-wide Rainbow Falls, all to ourselves. The falls, whose original Hawaiian name, as Waiananura, was muddy that day because of the rains. The river's name, Wailuku, means waters of destruction. They say 1/4 of all drowning deaths in the area happen in this river, Loney said, noting that bodies are often never found. A lot of people don't let their kids play in this river, but my parents encouraged us. Of course, they had 6 kids. We stopped at our next falls on Waiuu Stream, Kaiamu Kanaka Falls, with low twin flows and a deeply carved cave near the base. Here we took time out to sample some local specialties, freshly cracked macadamia nuts plus longan fruit related to lychee. Final waterfall was Kulanaipia, situated on a private resort of the same name, also on Waiuu Stream. We munched sandwiches on a balcony overlooking the waterfall before wandering down a grassy path lined by tiny magenta orchids and big stands of bamboo. This is usually a safer stream than the Wailuku River, and at the base of the waterfall on quieter days, tourgoers can swim, kayak, or go stand-up paddleboarding beneath the spray. Resort guests regularly rappel down the 120-foot waterfall. Trump lashes out at Mueller, by Darlene Superville, The Associated Press, Washington. President Donald Trump on Sunday took out his frustrations over the intensifying Russia investigation by lashing out at special counsel Robert Mueller, signaling a possible shift away from a strategy of cooperating with a probe he believed is biased against him. In a series of weekend tweets naming Mueller for the first time, Trump criticized the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and raised fresh concerns about the objectivity and political leanings of the members of Mueller's team. Trump also challenged the honesty of Andrew McCabe, the newly fired FBI deputy director, and James Comey, the Bureau's former director, whom Trump fired last year over the Russia probe. The president's aggressive stance followed a call Saturday by his personal lawyer for Rod Rosenstein, whom Trump appointed as Deputy Attorney General and who now oversees Mueller's inquiry to bring an end to that investigation. Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, which spent the past year conducting a parallel investigation, recently said they have drafted a report concluding no collusion on coordination between Trump's presidential campaign and Russia. Committee Democrats vehemently disagreed. The Mueller probe should never have been started, and that there was no collusion and there was no crime, Trump tweeted Saturday. It was based on fraudulent activities and a fake dossier paid for by Crooked Hillary and the DNC, and improperly used in FISA court for surveillance on my campaign witch hunt. Trump was referring to a dossier of anti-Trump research funded by the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton's campaign. Likely adding to Trump's growing frustration, the New York Times reported last week that Mueller had subpoenaed the Trump Organization and requested Russia-related documents. Trump had said Mueller would cross a red line with such a step. Why does the Mueller team have 13 hardened Democrats, some big Crooked Hillary supporters, and 0 Republicans? Trump tweeted Sunday. Some of Mueller's investigators indeed have contributed to Democratic political candidates, but Justice Department policy and federal service law ban discrimination in the hiring of career positions on the basis of political affiliation. Mueller is a Republican. A deeply frustrated Trump has fumed to confidants that the Mueller probe is going to choke the life out of his presidency if allowed to continue unabated indefinitely, according to an outside advisor who insisted on anonymity to discuss private conversations with the president. Trump has long believed that the entrenched bureaucracy, particularly at the Justice Department and FBI, is out to thwart him and has pointed to McCabe's wife's associations with Democrats, including longtime Clinton ally Terry McAuliffe, as an example. He also fumed to one confidant after seeing a promotion for Comey's forthcoming book and believes the former FBI director will seek to enrich himself by besmirching Trump's reputation. The president has long been torn over how to approach the Mueller probe. Trump insists that his campaign did not collude with Russia, and his legal team, namely attorney Ty Cobb, has counseled the president to cooperate with Mueller. Actor warns of nuclear threat. Seth Sheldon keeps a close eye on the clock, the doomsday clock. That's the method by which scientists and other experts measure the likelihood of nuclear war and other global catastrophes. Today the clock stands at 2 minutes before midnight, midnight being global catastrophe. It's the closest it's been to midnight since 1953, Sheldon said. Sheldon is a New York-based actor and lawyer who was starring in Cape Fear Regional Theater's production of Disgraced. The play opened Thursday and continues through Sunday. He also volunteers with the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN. Last year, the group earned a Nobel Peace Prize for its work in getting past a United Nations treaty to ban nuclear weapons. Sheldon was in Ohio, Norway, in December to watch the group, or Oslo, Norway, in December to watch the group pick up the award. It was incredibly moving, he said. I cry all the time thinking about that day, even though I know there's a long way to go. Sheldon, 41, grew up in Brooklyn, New York. He graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill with a degree in international studies and went on to get a law degree from the University of California at Berkeley. Growing up in a family of musicians, Sheldon gravitated toward theater and other arts. He plays numerous instruments, including woodwinds, oboe, and French horn. He recently picked up the harp for a role as Harpo Marx in a Marx Brothers play called I'll Say She Is. But as a kid during the Cold War, the threat that nuclear weapons posed was always on Sheldon's mind. That possibility was driven home when Sheldon read John Hershey's Hiroshima. In high school, it tells the stories of survivors of the nuclear bomb that the United States dropped on Japan on August 6, 1945. Had a profound impact on changing how I thought about war in general, Sheldon said in an interview at Cape Fear Regional Theater. Changed the way I thought about America's role in World War II in general, and the way I thought about the utility of weaponry. After graduating from Berkeley and embarking on a career practicing intellectual property law, Sheldon became involved with ICAN. He provided legal assistance and lobbying for the group. Founded in 2007, ICAN was modeled after the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. It consists of more than 460 partner organizations in more than 100 countries that support abolishing nuclear weapons. Last year, ICAN succeeded in getting passed in the United Nations a treaty prohibiting the development, testing, production, stockpiling, stationing, transfusion, and threat or use of nuclear weapons. The vote was 122-1. The Netherlands voted against the treaty, and Singapore abstained. None of the nations that have nuclear weapons voted on the treaty. Sheldon said while the treaty was adopted, it was not put into force. That will require 50 nations to sign and ratify it. The process is really hard getting started, Sheldon said. In December, Sheldon watched as ICAN director Beatrice Finn and Hiroshima survivor Setsuko Thurlow accepted the award in Oslo. Sheldon called it a surreal experience. John Legend and other musicians performed a concert. It was 5 days of events, he said. The whole city was abuzz for this week. Sheldon said he was struck by the celebration that greeted the event in much of the world, compared with the relative lack of attention it received in the United States. While seeing ICAN receive the Nobel Prize was an emotional high, Sheldon said he is under no illusion that the work to rid the world of nuclear weapons is done. And that was driven home by visits to Hiroshima and Nagasaki in late 2016, where Sheldon viewed museums and memorials to the hundreds of thousands who died. Today, with many more nations possessing nuclear weapons and much more powerful capabilities than in the 1940s, Sheldon said the stakes are infinitely higher. People don't realize how much more powerful the bombs in our arsenal are now, he said. makes the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like BB guns in comparison. Russian election, ballot stuffing, coercion, gimmicks by Francesca Ebel, The Associated Press, Moscow. Social networks buzzed all day Sunday with videos, photos, and first-hand accounts of voting violations in Russia's presidential election. Election authorities said they will investigate all irregularities and annul results where needed. But the breadth of the reports was striking, and they may cast a shadow on the victory by incumbent Vladimir Putin. Video, authenticated by the Associated Press, showed some of the apparent irregularities. Some also were reported by observers, including representatives of opposition leader Alexei Navalny, the Golos monitoring group, and ordinary Russians. Some examples: ballot box stuffing. CCTV footage of a voting station in the Moscow suburb of Lyabursky shows a woman taking a ballot from a table, looking around to see if anyone is watching, then putting it in the box. She repeats the action again and again. Another woman, apparently a colleague at the station, joins her. A video from Hukhamyurth in Chechnya shows a man in a white cap repeatedly putting ballots in the same box. In the Primorsky region of the Far East, a woman pulls papers from her jacket and stuffs them in a box. Dozens of other examples of apparent ballot box stuffing were posted online. The Regional Election Commission said the results from the Lyabursky station would be invalidated. Authorities sealed a ballot box in the southern city of Roslav-on-Don, where ballot stuffing was reported, and are investigating similar allegations in Artoyam in the Far East. Assaulting observers. Video from a polling station in Makakala in the Caucasus Mountains, Republic of Dagestan, showed local official Mogamet Razlov appearing to punch observer Malik Butayev before being led out by police. Aida Mirmaksumova, who was collecting violations in Machakala, said burly man dressed in black dragged an observer for Communist Party candidate Pavel Grudanin on the ground as he shouted, "Help!" Others yelled, "Get out of here!" Amid the melee, people were seen shifting what appeared to be ballots into a ballot box. Zhukrav Amarov, an observer for Liberal candidate Grigory Yavlinsky, said he was dragged away by police as he was trying to shoot video of violations in Makachakala. They asked me to show my passport with my registrations. They were asking what I was doing, why, and they said that they would break my nose. They asked me why we were running, and they destroyed all the videos of the violations that we had taken, but some of them are already online, Amarov said, displaying bruises and ripped pants from the incident. Forced voting. Residents in Perm, Yekaterinburg, and Moscow showed the AP messages from employers pressuring workers to vote and requiring them to report on when and where they cast ballots. One worker said he feared he wouldn't get his monthly bonuses if he didn't. In Kudrovo, in the Leningradsky region outside St. Petersburg, observer Sergei Dzuz discovered people apparently bust into a traditionally low turnout area to boost participation. From the very beginning, there were many people who came to our political station, he told the AP. He followed one group getting on a bus, but as he said members of the group tried to shield their identities from the camera and refused to answer the questions. Central Election Commission Deputy Chief Nikolay Boyelev defended the practice of busing voters to voting stations as help for those in remote areas poorly served by public transport. Gimmicks. There also were turnout boosting gimmicks and state-funded campaigns, which were not technically illegal, but tacitly helped the incumbent. In Moscow, health officials offered cancer screening and discounted food products at polling stations. Some towns staged dancing, sports competitions, and clown acts. Prizes were offered at some polls for voters who wore the best costumes, and some people came dressed as bears, folk characters, and medieval knights. In the Leningradsky region, one man was photographed dressed as a somewhat ballistic missile, perhaps hoping to capture the attention of the Kremlin as it expands its nuclear arsenal. Tonight on television, ABC WTVD Channel 11, WPDE Channel 15. From 8 to 10, American Idol 104 auditions was performed for the judges. From 10 to 11, The Good Doctor. Tonight's episode, Smile. A patient lies about her identity. CBS, WNCN, Channel 17, WBTW, Channel 13, from 8 to 8:30, Kevin Can Wait. From 8:30 to 9, Man with a Plan. From 9 to 9:30, Superior Donuts. From 9:30 to 10, Living Biblically. From 10 to 11, Scorpion. Tonight's episode, Gator Dunn. Team Scorpion heads to the Bayou. Fox, WRAZ Channel 50, WGHP Channel 8, and WSFX Channel 26. From 8 to 9, Lucifer, serial killer, targets loving couples. From 9 to 10, The Resident. A homeless Jane Doe is admitted. From 10 to 11, The News. NBC, WRAL Channel 5, WECG Channel 6, and WMBF Channel 32. From 8 to 10, The Voice. The battles premiere. The battle rounds begin. From 10 to 11, Good Girls. Beth comes home to a surprise guest. PBS, WUNC Channel 4, WUNU, and WUNJ. From 8 to 9, Antiques Roadshow. From 9 to 11, Jackie Robinson. A documentary about baseball player Jackie Robinson. A&E Channel 21. From 8 to 10, Waco, Madman or Messiah? Followers travel to Mount Carmel, Part 1 of 2. And beginning at 10, Waco, Madman or Messiah? The Raid of Mount Carmel. AMC Channel 41. From 7 to 10, the first 48, or from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, a 3-day, 3-star science fiction movie from 1996, Independence Day, starring Will Smith, Bill Pullman, and Jeff Goldblum. Earthlings versus evil aliens and 15-mile-wide ships. And from 10 to 11:30, McMafia, episode 104, Alex devises a plan of attack. The Discovery Channel, Channel 42, from 8 to 9, Fast and Loud, Revved Up. That Car, Part 1 of 2. From 9 to 10, Fast and Loud, race to get a 75 Datsun 280Z ready. From 10 to 11, Shifting Gears with Alan Kaufman. TVN, Channel 68, from 8 to 9, Praise the Lord. From 9 to 9:30, The Essential. From 9:30 to 10, Jesse Duplantis. From 10 to 10:30, Remembered. From 10:30 to 11, GregLaurie.tv. TBS Channel 24. From 8 to 10 for back-to-back episodes of Family Guy. From 10 to 10:30, American Dad. From 10:30 to 11, Final Space. Turner Classic Movies Channel 54. From 8 to 10, a 4-star movie from 1967, Bonnie and Clyde, starring Warren Beatty. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow become 1930s outlaw lovers. And from 10 to 11:45, a 3-star mystery from 1948, The Lady from Shanghai, starring Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles. The Learning Channel, Channel 23, from 8 to 9, Long Lost Family. From 9 to 10, Counting On. At 10 to 10:30, another episode of Counting On. And from 10:30 to 11, Medium. TNT, Channel 28, from 5:30 until 9, a 3-star movie from 1983, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, starring Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford. From 8 to 9, The Alienist Requiem. From 10 to 11, The Alienist Requiem. And that's what's on television tonight. Some wanted Florida shooting suspect committed in 2016. Officials were so concerned about the mental stability of the student accused of last month's Florida school massacre that they decided he should be forcibly committed. But the recommendation was never acted upon. A commitment under the law would have made it more difficult, if not impossible, for Nicholas Cruz to obtain a gun legally. Cruz is accused of the shooting rampage that killed 14 students and 3 school employees at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland on February 14th. In addition, 17 people were wounded. But more than a year earlier, documents in a criminal case against Nicholas Cruz and obtained by the Associated Press show school officials and a sheriff's deputy recommended in September 2016 that Cruz be involuntarily committed for a mental evaluation. Such an involuntary commitment would also have been a high obstacle, if not a complete barrier, to legally obtaining a firearm such as the AR-15 rifle used in the Stoneman-Douglas massacre on February 14th, authorities say. This concludes this reading of Monday's Fayetteville Observer. Your host has been Robert Bean. I've enjoyed being with you this morning. Thank you for tuning us in, and have a wonderful day.